Hi guys, I have everybody muted. Becky, if and when you're here and I don't see you, please raise your hand or message me in the chat so I know. Oh, she is asking me a question. Hold on, everybody. Okay. Sorry, guys. Thank you for putting your name in. That's a good thing to be doing now while we are waiting for Becky to get on. And Becky, once you're on, if it's not your name, let me know so I can unmute you, because right now I have everybody muted. If you guys are able to make sure you are changing your name to your name so that we know who you are. Oh, I'm guessing Becky Motivates is Becky. That seems likely. So Becky, I'm gonna unmute you somehow. Hold on, you just disappeared. There you are. I'm unmuting Becky. Hi, there, I see you. Oh, is it working? Did I unmute you? Now I did.
All right.
All right. So I have everybody else muted for now, and I was, my thought was that I would kind of try not to be really backlit, that I would try to moderate questions and stuff in the chat so that you don't have to worry about looking in 50 different places.
Awesome.
Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're usually just giving folks a few minutes to get in. And it's good to see you virtually.
You too.
How are you doing?
Surviving.
Yes. And congrats on being married.
Thank you. How's the baby?
He's good. He got down for nap in time for me to do this, which is always a plus. And, you know, that's my daily thing is, will he be asleep in time for me to do what I need to do at 2 o'clock? All right, somebody has their hand up, 925-453-9928. I'm going to unmute you for a moment, so go ahead.
There she gone. Okay.
Who has their hand up? I just unmuted.
The mama bear bin. Ribbon. That's class.
Okay, I'm going to remute you because I don't know what you're saying. So 453-9928. No, okay. I'm gonna sorry. All right, a few more people in the waiting room. All right. So somebody's asking what this class is about. So for those of you who may have joined and not know, we have a special guest. Becky is here today, and she's going to talk about the cool stuff and work that she does with disability inclusion in the media and whatever else you want to share with us. I'm not going to go in too much because, you know, I met Becky about a year ago at was it Bridge to the Future conference?
Yeah, I think we may have met in Bentonville.
Oh, that's true. That was before that.
Then we saw each other again.
That's right. Yeah.
Almost 2 years ago, because I think it was in May, right?
Yeah. So that is what the class is about. It's more of a special guest presentation / Q&A, etc. And then everybody in the chat is signing in, which is great. So please continue to do that. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Becky. I think we're at capacity-ish, so I'll let you get started.
I would love to just quickly get a quick background, just like of what everyone has kind of been up to, what the background is of the class, and then I can kind of customize towards that.
That's great.
And then time frame and all that.
Yeah, so it's 2 to 3.
Okay.
And right now you're talking to students from all 3 of our film and media studios. So the vocational training program, where we're giving usually hands-on training in film and media, but since March 17th, we've all been sheltering in place. So, or 16th actually. So, so we have programs in Livermore, Stockton, and Sacramento with about 90 students total. And every day we're offering classes kind of on a variety of topics, whatever people have been wanting to present, to try to keep our program going as best as we can. So you have students here from all of our programs that are interested in all elements of filmmaking. We've got writers, actors, directors, art folks, editors, camera, lighting, sound. People that are interested in everything are here.
Love it.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think it would be helpful kind of giving a little bit of my background. A lot of times I give my story in chronological order because it helps make sense of how I got to where I was and where I continue to try to be. So I know it's a little hard for people to tell, or I don't know, maybe facial features tell, but on video, I am a little person, so I identify as someone who has a disability. I stand 4 feet tall. I was born to average height parents. My parents had never met a little person before I was born. So they had only seen they had only seen fictional characters of little people in the media before I was born. So they were a little unsure of what my future would be like. And they just did as much research as possible to make sure they could help me live and lead a fulfilling and independent life. I grew up in a community just south of Boston, Massachusetts. All the people in my community were not little people. They were all average height. I went to school among my average height peers. I had a friend in my class from preschool to 7th grade, and she was an ally where she could help kind of protect me from any potential bullies, people who may make comments about my stature. And because of that, I don't feel like that I was really bullied growing up during those years of school where I had that friend who could support me. So I always tell people that it's very important to have someone who can support you and be an ally, because it's not easy going at this alone, especially when it comes to advocacy. And a lot of it is fear of the unknown. Someone who hasn't seen a little person before in real life assumes that we're all like the little people in the media. Fortunately, now there are a lot of positive portrayals in addition to some challenging portrayals, because there are so many more media outlets. So kind of as I was growing up, I was trying to figure out, as I was thinking about a career path, what would make the most sense when it comes to changing how people like me are treated in society. So I decided that I wanted to be a marketing major. I ended up going to Providence College in Providence, Rhode Island. And one of the reasons I decided to go there was because there was a little person in the cafeteria when I was going on tour of the school. And that was part of my decision making. I saw that there was another little person and the environment had been exposed to another little person. So it was going to be a more inclusive environment than maybe some other places that I visited where there wasn't a little person in sight. And the reason I say it's a big deal is because there are only 30,000 little people in the United States. So in most cases, people have not met a little person before meeting someone like me. I was a marketing major. I actually also did take some film classes at Providence College. They did not have a minor quite yet. but they were trying to build out a minor in film. They had a theater arts major and minor, but I kind of kept along the business marketing route and took some of those extra classes in photography and filmmaking. I ended up doing several internships throughout my college experience. I feel that internships are really important and valuable because it gives you a preview into what work in the real world would be like, and it allows you to test out things, whether or not you like something or don't like something. So my first internship, actually after my freshman year in college, the first year in college, was in accounting at a fire insurance agency, and it was related to working for a neighbor of the street where I grew up. And I knew after I tried that out that that was not what I wanted to do. The next summer, I worked at iRobot in the marketing department. So they make the robotic vacuums that a lot of people have these days, and they actually make robots for the war zones as well. They have robots that will go into the trenches that will go further than we would want real human beings to go to check for bombs. And then, so after I had that experience, I had a little bit of experience related to the media industry because we were given some scripts for product placement opportunities. So there were some television scripts like the TV show Friends and Sex and the City. And we were reading the scripts to see if there were opportunities to integrate the iRobot robotic vacuum into the scenes in the TV shows. And that was one of those moments where I realized how much influence the media industry has on society and corporate America, because these corporations are eager to get their products into films and TV shows in order to get more exposure, which will hopefully lead to more sales in the end. Because if someone sees someone who they really admire using a product, they're more likely to look into it and maybe purchase it for themselves. It was also the year that the movie I, Robot came out with Will Smith. I think that it was spelled similarly, where it was a lowercase I, capital R-O-B-O-T, but I think the movie company bought the rights to be able to use the name, so it wouldn't be associated with the company, but we were still able to go and see the film, which was cool. Then going into my junior year of college, I decided to start looking into ad agencies. I thought maybe I wanted to work in advertising. And I pulled out an article in the newspaper in Boston that was the top 100 ad agencies in Boston. And I sent them letters to apply for potential internship opportunities for that summer going into my senior year. And the one place that responded was called Allied Advertising. And they were an ad agency that was the intermediary between the general public and the movie companies. So I would find the target audience, take a movie like Happy Feet, try to find families in the Boston area who were willing to go see the film. I would then be there at the film, making sure that nobody was taking pictures with their camera phones, and also checking for what people reacted to in the film. And this was before the wide release. And then I would take notes and send those notes to the studios. They could make updates and changes to the film if they had the time or wanted to make changes before the wide release. So it really was just testing out a film to see if it worked with an audience that they were trying to get at. And then that also encouraged those people who had the benefit of going to an advanced screening to tell their friends and families if it was a film that they were really interested in. I did that for the summer before my senior year in college, and then I was able to also do it when I went back to Providence at the movie theater in Providence. I would cover some of the screenings, and it was really crazy. It was a movie theater that was in the top of a mall, and the parking lot was at the bottom of the mall, and a lot of people would come to the theater with their camera phones, and they weren't allowed to go into the screening with their camera phones, so they would have to go back down to their car to put their phone away, and then they could come back in. And it was just an interesting observation because these people take this industry so seriously and they want to be given this chance to have the benefit of seeing a film early. So fortunately, they were willing to cooperate and put their phones away. But uh, that was just a fun experience to start to learn about the industry. And then I was looking for opportunities for the spring of my senior year in college, and I worked at the NBC station in Providence. It was the NBC affiliate, where I worked in publicities and promotion. So anytime they would be advertising what was happening within the city or something that a company may be doing, I would write the script for those. And while I was there, I was networking with the person I was assisting, and he had a friend who worked as a casting director, and she was filming the movie. She was getting ready to cast for the film Underdog. This was back in 2006. So Underdog, the film, it has Peter Dinklage and then a robotic dog and superhero type film by Disney, was looking for someone to stand in for Peter Dinklage. So I know a lot of you may know what stand-in work is, but it's when someone goes in and gets the set or helps get the set ready for the actor to then go in and act. And a lot of little people end up being stand-in actors for children on movies and television shows because we are the height of a lot of children, and the children are required to go to a certain amount of schooling. But someone like Peter, who was an adult, didn't need to go to the schooling, but he was able to go rest in his trailer. I was able to get the opportunity. They offered it to me, but then I found out that it was going to conflict. The start date was going to conflict with my last 2 weeks of college. And I had to figure out what to do. And of course, it was important for me to take the opportunity to finish college, even though it was really hard to do. So I didn't want to lose the opportunity of networking with the person who was the casting director. I wanted to be able to learn from her. And she asked me if I wanted to help out during the summer with the casting of the extras. So anyone who would come on set, she would ask me to help try to get people to show up to set. So sometimes I had to call 600 people a day to show up for a big crowd scene. And it was crazy. Sometimes I would call people and they would say, you know, I have this really important doctor's appointment, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to go to set. So let me see if I can cancel my doctor's appointment. I was like, I don't want you to die. But they still came to set. So it was really about getting the numbers, trying to get a certain amount of people to come to set. And a lot of them had been through background checks and gone through the whole process. So we knew we were calling trusted sources. Because of course there's that etiquette where we have to make sure people are being respectful. But it was fascinating. One of the days I did go to set, and they have the State House in Providence, and they had to replace the chandelier that's normally in the State House with a fake chandelier because there was going to be a scene where it was going to break and shatter, and obviously you're not going to use the real one. But also thinking a town like Providence is less busy than New York or LA or some other cities when it comes to filming. So people were really excited about these maybe once in a lifetime opportunities to be able to have exposure and be on a movie set. I was able to meet Peter one of the days, which was really cool. I think he was surprised that I walked into the room. There was someone his height in the room. We had a good conversation. Then throughout that summer, I continued to help with the casting. And then once the film was wrapping up, I ended up moving out to Los Angeles. I had a friend who was a little person. He was an actor, and he had a talent manager who was also a little person who asked me to come work for her. So I moved out to California, got settled. The minute I got there, or like soon after I got there, I found out that this lady was not going to have me work for her. So even another little person, there was a miscommunication. We weren't able to work together. So I had to kind of start this job search process from ground zero. moving out to a city I had never lived in before. And I ended up picking up a Hollywood creative directory. I don't even know if they have them anymore, at least the physical versions, because everything's digital. But it showed me the list of names and addresses of every production facility and agency and advertising or trailer making company in Los Angeles. And then I also would drive around town to try to see signs of buildings and look into places that may be worth applying to. And this was just applying for a very entry level job. I had some of the experience and internships in college and then that casting experience, but this was just whatever I could do to get my foot in the door. During that time, I met someone who was an alumni. I utilized the alumni network for Providence College. There was a smaller population of people out on the West Coast, but there were still some people that I was able to reach out to and meet with. And he was an actor himself and had a talent manager. So he asked if I wanted to learn from her. So it ended up being an unpaid opportunity, but it was still an opportunity. And I continued to search for work as I was getting that experience. I ended up sending out about 1,000 resumes and went on 100 interviews over the course of 4 months, all entertainment related jobs. So it's a very competitive industry, but I tell people, don't give up. You just got to keep pushing. But one of the things after about 4 months that was very beneficial to me was getting connected with some temporary placement agencies. So I would interview with someone who was a recruiter for a living, and they would then pitch me to jobs. So I was able to go show up at the job and start working rather than going through the official interview process where there were continuous barriers. I ended up working for about a month at the Hallmark Channel in the marketing department. It was over the holidays, so it was pretty slow as far as influencing the content that they put out there, but it was still a good environment to be in, to learn a little bit about a company that produces films and TV shows. And then after that, I had about 3 weeks off before I got connected with Creative Artists Agency, which is a big talent agency in Los Angeles. And I was asked to show up to work one day. It was for a talent agent who focuses primarily on Hispanic marketing. Unfortunately, I took French in college, in high school and a little bit of college, but she was a great mentor. I think what helped is that she was someone who was passionate about diversity as a whole, and she was willing to give me guidance. And after about 6 months, there was a position open in entertainment marketing. So I was able to work on corporate accounts. So I switched bosses and was able to help with accounts like eBay and Harley Davidson and Mattel and Moet Champagne. And we would do things similarly to what I was doing in the role where we read scripts at iRobot. So we would read scripts and try to find places where we could integrate these different brands. There were also opportunities like Harley Davidson wanted us to read magazines like People Magazine and find people who are riding motorcycles. And if they weren't riding a Harley Davidson, they wanted us to try to convince them to ride a Harley Davidson. We ended up giving Shia LaBeouf a Harley Davidson, but unfortunately he gave it to his mom and it defeated the purpose. But you're going to run into that. So a lot of these brands are willing to take chances and give it a try to get celebrities to be loyal to their brands. So Coca-Cola would be a big sponsor of a lot of the award shows. eBay was all about a theme of winning. Even though you're spending money to bid on auction items on eBay, it's still that feeling of winning when you win an auction. And then, so eBay had that, and then Moet, trying to find Moet moments. So instead of just having a scene in a movie that has a bunch of champagne and they're at a party, have a moment where someone's like, this is the best champagne I've ever tried. Everyone should try some Moet, or have you tried Moet before? Something where it gets you to say it. And then Mattel, we had some big movies that were made off of products or TV shows. It originally started as Hasbro, and then they left because their director was with the other competitor, so they moved over there, but we were able to still use that experience to help Mattel out and turn a lot of their toy properties into media outlets. And then after about 2.5 years in the marketing department, I was told that they were downgrading the marketing department and focusing more a little bit on the creative side. And I needed to kind of figure out what was going to be next. So I decided that I wanted to look into comedy. So there was an opportunity to be part of this group. It was a comedy club coverage group. So I was able to go out to comedy shows similarly to what I was doing, where I would go out to advanced screenings of movies and write notes. I would write notes on comedians and what I thought about those comedians and how talented they were or not. And then I would send those notes to the agents in the comedy department, and they ended up like asking me for my feedback on whether or not I really liked someone, if there was someone that continued to show up in my notes, and then that may be someone that they signed, so they would represent them. Once there was a position, because I was doing that kind of all on my own, this wasn't related to working in the job I was working in marketing, it was just an extra opportunity to kind of go above and beyond to figure out that next placement. I was able to get a job in the comedy department once a position opened. So all of the jobs up until this point were assisting an agent. So a lot of these agents, they're the ones navigating where they want to go or who they want to represent, and then I'm supporting them in those roles. So with the agent I ended up working for in the comedy department, she covered casinos and comedy clubs and festivals. So anytime you see a comedian at a comedy club, a casino, or festival, if they were represented by the agency, we would have been involved with the booking process. So we determine how much they're going to get paid. Sometimes comedians may want to get paid a certain base amount, and then if the comedy club makes more money than the base amount, they may still want a percentage. So we would figure out all different deals. And then I would say right now is not a good time for comedy agents, but I guess they're figuring out how to do some things digitally. But after that, so I was in the comedy department for another 2 years. I was a total of 5 years at Creative Artists Agency. And towards the end of my 5 years, people started asking me what I was passionate about. And up until that point, I didn't really want to talk about it because I wanted to just prove myself as someone who could work in this industry. And once people started asking, I became more vocal about what I was passionate about. And I said, I want to change how people like me are perceived in the media. And in order to do that, we have to change what's in the media. Mm. And the agency gave me a platform to host a panel conversation at the agency where I brought together people who with disabilities behind and in front of the camera. So there was a conversation that took place at the agency. It was in October of 2011. So it also fell on Disability Employment Awareness Month. And from that, I was able to build a Facebook page and Twitter page called Disability in Media, where I continue to share stories, positive stories of great things people are doing who happen to have disabilities, not letting things stop them. I stay away from anything that could be negative. There's a lot of negative out there, but I want people to see portrayals beyond the media that we can see in TV and movies, because so many people are using digital outlets as well to get their contents and how they may treat someone in the future. And through that, there have just been so many great conversations. And while I was having some of those conversations, someone told me that I should consider looking back into casting. And I ended up working at CBS Television Studios in television casting for about a year. And what we did in the casting department, we would oversee casting directors. So a lot of casting directors have their own agencies or casting agencies. And they would come to us and ask for permission on whether or not we could cast someone. We would have to approve all of the speaking roles. If there were any big name people who we wanted to be in a TV show or a pilot season takes place from January to April, we would have to find films that they've done in the past and cut out clips of the films that they've done in the past to present to the studio, the heads of the studio, because we would need to make an offer to those big names rather than them auditioning. So that became challenging, just trying to figure out who was going to agree to a TV show versus a series. Because with a pilot, you don't know if something's going to be picked up. It may film one episode, or it may be the next 10 years of your life if it's a series that does really well. And people weren't quite ready to make those decisions, even though movies take a few years sometimes. I think they feel that that's less of a commitment to their the big piece of the pie of their life. But there were times where there were actors we wanted in New Zealand, and we would have to figure out a quick turnaround to get them a visa, to get them to the States in order for them to see the head of the studio to be considered for a film or TV show. So that was an interesting experience. I did that for about a year. I struggled a little bit just with communication internally with the people I was working with. One person wanted me to be there, one did not. There just wasn't that nurturing communication that I was looking for. So I decided to actually leave California and move back to Boston. I went through a time of like, what did I just do? I gave up my experience in the film industry and TV industry, but I figured I'm going to stay connected, stay networking. And my sister is a creative writing teacher in middle school, and she asked me if I could come speak to her students. And I decided, okay, sure. I don't know why they want to meet me, but I'll speak to them. And I took that as an opportunity to start telling my story. I worried a little bit about, I didn't reach a certain level in my career. I wasn't like this big agent or big studio executive. Why do people want to hear from me? But then I started realizing that the human touch is really important, and it's important to still tell people not to give up. And I was just kind of pivoting, trying to figure out what was next. And I ended up just reaching out to a lot of Rotary clubs, networking groups, any opportunity I could get just to be able to share my story. And I did that for probably about 8 or 9 months until the first opportunity became available to get my first paid speech. And it's really just making sure people understand that they're heard and seen, especially when it comes to the disability community. I continue to try to get people to understand that and realize that as awesome as the entertainment industry is, there's a lot of opportunity to influence people in all different industries. And after about 1.5 years, I was able to kind of get back into the industry working at the Actors Union in the diversity department. I moved to New York City, so I was there for about 3.5 years. And we would oversee the different diversity committees who were advocating for more opportunities for those underrepresented groups. And that's kind of how I connected with a lot more people who work in this space, advocating for disability inclusion. And then the role that I'm currently in, I work for a nonprofit organization called Disability In, and we work with a lot of big corporations that have entertainment arms to them, but we're looking at the bigger picture of including people with disabilities in all aspects of your workforce. And a lot of those decisions are also influenced by what people see in the media. And I think it's important just for people to be open-minded when you're looking at job descriptions or descriptions for a role in a film or TV show. Make sure that you're being inclusive and encourage the underrepresented groups to submit. Kind of like inclusion films, yes. That's how I met inclusion films. The passion. Yeah, so it's I'd love to take anyone's questions just I'm thankful that all you guys are working hard at being inclusive from the start, and I think it'll change the direction of the industry, having people like you working on this.
Great. So we're getting some hands raised for questions.
Awesome.
There was one way back at the beginning about, was it cold growing up in Massachusetts? So
Yes. It was funny. One of the reasons, or when people asked my dad why I moved to California, even though I've kind of been in all different climates now, he would respond by saying, "Can you picture her shoveling snow and getting lost in the snow? Go let her be in a warm climate."
yeah, I do think that's indicative. That question is indicative of the fact that you're talking to a bunch of Californians right now.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'm just going to go in the order that I see hands. So AK, Andrew, you're first. I'm going to unmute you and you can ask your question. Go ahead.
What was your first film that got you inspired into making films?
Oh, wow. I really loved the Station Agent with Peter Dinklage. A lot of people talk about that film. I actually, in middle school, I tried to get into theater, but I have never had a singing voice. And I was Toto in The Wizard of Oz. But I think during that period, it kind of got me to look into that film as well, and the importance of how it brought awareness. But it also is important for us to educate people that we're all not, those are characters in a film, and we're not all that character in real life. So I think some of those portrayals helped me at least think and get my brain trying to figure out how to find solutions. And
Right.
I really liked Forrest Gump too. I like the story of
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Derek, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
So I have two questions actually. One is, were you ever bullied growing up?
Do you want to ask both of your questions and then she can answer them?
Sure. And two would be, who did you see at the comedy club?
So was I ever bullied, and then who did I see at
The comedy club when you were working in the comedy scene.
Yes. So I would say more emotionally. I think people sometimes think of bullying as like physical act, and I think it's changed over the years, but more emotionally, where people make you feel less than. So when I was in 11th grade, a lot of my friends who were close friends since preschool started dating, and they didn't think that I could be around because I was different. They thought I was going to ruin their social game. And I think that was more damaging to me than even someone physically or just saying something straight to my face. It was that like they can't fully explain why I'm interfering with their lives, but they're hinting it. And then there were basketball players who farted in my face, so that wasn't the greatest. But I think I was fortunate to continue to be surrounded by people who support me. I think New York City, living there for almost 4 years, was difficult because there are 8 million people, and every day you're reminded that you're different because there are enough people to remind you that. So there are some, I think one of the hardest things is when people think I'm on like a reality TV show, which sometimes isn't the best portrayal of us. They don't believe me when I say, no, I'm not that person. And instead of just letting me go about my life, they have to tell me that I'm a liar and continue to say that I'm lying and I'm really that person. But there's not just one of us. And then I would say comedy club, saw a lot of people because I saw a lot of shows, sometimes up to 4 a night. But one of the craziest nights was seeing Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill. They were rehearsing for the movie Funny People. And I had a friend who was also performing that night. not at that level of fame, and he was so nervous. But then in reality, they ended up not being that great because they're not used to performing in front of live audiences. They're used to having multiple takes. So I think what I learned as I was observing comedy, as starting out as a comedian doing live stand-up, is a great skill to have before entering. I know people prefer to just get a film deal because it will be more money, but having that live experience is equally as important. Oh, someone just said it's Seth
Rogen's
birthday.
Coincidence.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a couple hands up, so we'll try to get through everybody. So Sadie, go ahead. Oh, wait, sorry. Sadie, go ahead. There you go.
So what films did you make?
What films did I make? So I did not specifically make or directly make films, but I was involved with the casting of the movie Underdog, and then at CBS, there were some show. I don't even know if any of the shows are still on back in 2011 to 2012. But Beauty and the Beast, which was on CW. There were a lot of the older shows are still on, but there was Widow Detective, Friend Me. Friend Me didn't end up getting picked up. That was an interesting show, though, and that was one of the reasons why I was a little confused about how things operate where I was. There was a pilot, it was called Friend Me, and it was about these two guys. They both moved from Indiana to LA to work at Groupon, and one guy is a stay-at-home kind of guy. He was just playing video games with his friends all the time back at home, so he might as well have just stayed in Indiana. And the other guy wanted to go out and socialize, so we went to a coffee shop and met someone who was described as 2 inches taller than a little person. I was like, why can't it just be a little person? And I read that script and I wanted to try to figure out how we could include a little person, and it ended up being where they kept struggling to find someone, and finally, like the day before the table read, asked if they could find a little person. I was like, it's kind of insulting. It's like a day before the table read, and they couldn't find someone, and they still ended up filming with someone who was really short. But I just really appreciated the dialogue. It was like the stay-at-home guy was making fun of his friend for making friends with a short person, but then the guy was standing up for him, and it's such a real thing that happens. So I would say there really aren't a ton of there were the CSI shows that were still going on, but I don't think any that I worked directly on are still running. I guess I didn't make an imprint, but at the talent agency, there were a lot of films and movies and TV shows created while I was there, but I wasn't directly involved.
In the chat, somebody wrote maybe there should be a term that doesn't sound insulting or disrespectful, and I wonder if they're referring to the term little person, and maybe if they are, what your thoughts are on that term.
So I'm okay with that term, but of course there are people who may not be okay, that everyone has different preferences. I would say the term midget is least preferred. Dwarf, person with dwarfism, I'm okay with. Some people may not like the term dwarf because it relates to kind of fictional characters, but it still is the medical terminology. It really is people's lived experience, so it just varies. But there's a link I'll send in the chat. It's a style guide. I think it says privately, but I'll.
Oh yeah, I have that too.
But I can send it
okay.
to you, or
if you click on where it says privately, you should be able to scroll up to everyone.
Everyone. Okay, there. All right, so it's a style guide, and it talks about the preferred terminology, and it may be helpful for people with casting notices and other things. So not just little person, but all different types of disabilities.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about that in our program when we write casting notices and how to write them in an inclusive way so that people reading them will know what we're open to in the role. So that's come up a lot. We also talk about identity first and person first language quite often.
Mm-hmm. That comes up very often. I think a big thing to think about is even adding a note like we strongly encourage, instead of excluding everyone from submitting for the role, you could still have a note that says like we strongly encourage someone who is blind or has low vision to apply for this opportunity.
Right.
At the Actors Union, they were big on any opportunities they send out to membership has to be open to membership based on the criteria. It could say like male or female, and someone could decide whether they want to submit, but it's okay to add some language of like, we're really looking to audition as many people as we can who fit this description.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go back to the hands that are raised and then just kind of follow along the chat. But Hans, go ahead.
And after college, I was staying around for the short. What I will say. I gotta put in the chat, but I lost it. Oh no, I got the person was in something about Mary. You know the actress?
Oh, what you put in the chat earlier, that you met the little person that played in Something About Mary?
Yeah. When he was really and his character was really mean in the acting, but we met him in a it was like a social thing, and he was there. There was film when one of my friends were took me. I met him.
And he was really nice in person?
Yeah.
Cool.
So they judge, I can't judge anybody until you really meet them in real life.
Amen.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Hans, for your comment. I'm going to move on to Jackson.
Hello. So it seems like from your story, it seems like networking was a part of getting to where you are now in your career. I was wondering if you had any recommendations on what might be a good way, where might be a good place for people to network now during these times, like whether it be
Crazy time.
well, like preferably online or of some sort.
Yeah, I think now more than ever, content's available for all different types of groups. I know you guys you're in Northern California, right?
Yeah, Bay Area.
But I was very involved with the Junior Hollywood Radio and Television Society, and they are producing a lot of online content right now. I don't know if they've looked into having additional locations. When I was involved, they were just launching in New York. So there may be a way to reach out to them and see if anyone in the past has expressed interest in starting a chapter in Northern California, because I think it would be beneficial. It's a great way to network with people getting started or people who are a little further along the way. And then I have a bunch of links I can send to Hester as well that I would send out to people on resources that I used when I was getting started looking for opportunities. And I think it's really important as you look for opportunities that you may like and want to pursue, that you also understand the culture and value of the company that you may be applying to, because they're going to look for that just as much. They don't want to have someone just show up and say, I just need a job. They want to make sure that you're willing to be invested in the culture once you work there as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those resources, and I will get them to everybody as well.
Yes. So I think it's just, you just got to look and see what's available, and I hope that it can lead to opportunities, but definitely don't give up.
Yeah. Okay, we have 4 more questions. We'll try to get through them. Michael Hancock, go ahead.
Hey Becky, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Doing good. So how'd you like working with the guys on that show that you talked to us about?
Which guy?
The
Peter
what?
Dinklage?
Yeah.
He was great. He was really nice. What was the craziest about one day when I was on set? They had flown one of the dogs. It was like a robot dog in order to do the special effects from the movie. They flew someone in from like Australia just to groom the robot dog because it had to be
That's
groomed in a
funny.
certain way.
Very cool. Okay, David Schlesinger, go ahead.
So when you gave your presentation earlier, I know you mentioned about the ways you are given opportunities for production jobs. Did you mention that you were unable to go through the traditional job interview process? Is that or I just wanted to ask for further clarification on if anything was holding you back or causing you to go through the process differently than a lot of other people.
That's a great question. So basically what happened was I wasn't getting opportunities coming out of the traditional interviews, and there was minimal communication. So I wasn't told whether or not I was just bad at interviewing or that they just didn't want me to work there. Sometimes companies would say, oh, we were just decided to hire internally, or we went in a different direction, or we eliminated the possibility of the position. There were just a lot of excuses without just telling the truth. I think I would have appreciated it more if someone just told me I was terrible at interviewing and that's why I didn't get the job, but no one really said that. So I just felt that going a different route before saying I'm done, because I did have a lot of pressure. My family back in Boston was like, are you ready to come home now that you don't have a job? And I wanted to continue to search until I could find that opportunity. And that going to those temporary placement agencies was just another opportunity for me to have access to jobs. So I was still interviewing on my own at the same time as going to those agencies and having them help me.
Great. All right. Sorry. 2 more. Christina.
Okay. Hi, Becky. How you doing?
Great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I have a comment and a question. I'll start off with the comment. I really liked your story and I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
And my question is, for special people like you, have you ever thought about becoming a public speaker to spread awareness to a global audience for people like you?
Of course. I went to Kenya a few years ago.
You did?
So now I just need to find more global places.
I'm planning on becoming a public speaker too.
Awesome. Well, let me know if you need any support.
Okay.
Thank you, Christina.
Welcome.
Yeah, well, and one of the places, I don't remember in Bentonville if were you on a panel?
Yes. So
Yeah.
we did the panel. It was the one Joey had done the year prior.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes.
The crazy panel.
Yeah. I facilitated it the year before. So
okay. Yes. And I think that's what we connected about over dinner.
Yes, it was the crazy year. I've told a lot of folks that story. But yeah, so Christina, I've heard Becky public speak multiple times now, and she's very, very good at it. So
awesome.
Yeah. I know this is an interesting format with the video. I'm still getting used to these ones.
It was great. So we just have a few more minutes. Hans has one more question, and then there's a couple that have been sent into the chat that we'll try to get to. So Hans, is your question the one you just chatted? Is it the same one? Go ahead. I'm trying to unmute you. I'm not succeeding. I don't know why. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I sent it.
You sent it. This is the one you said in the chat. Okay. So he said, how did you get into CBS and how do you overcome fears of rejection, I'm guessing? Okay.
So CBS, it was because I'd been going out to so many different comedy shows. There was one comedy show that was actually specific to Fox television. And it was a talent showcase for people that may be on some comedy television series that were comedy themed on Fox, and there just happened to be other people who work at other networks at that comedy show, and I was able to meet someone who worked at CBS, and I had expressed an interest in casting since I had a little experience prior, and they said that there was an open position and they wanted me to apply to it. So it was really networking from the point where I worked at the agency up until now. All of my jobs have been related to networking versus I still need to formally apply for the positions, but it really helps getting to know people and expressing what you're passionate about so they can know how to help you.
Great. And then Danny, go ahead, Danny.
Hi, Becky. I am from Normal, right? How do you get into films?
How do you get into films?
The short answer. Your 1 minute answer to that?
So into films like in front of the scene or working on them, or?
Danny, I'm going to steal this one. You're doing it right now. You're studying and you're learning the skills, right? So you're doing the steps that you need to take to get into film.
See, everyone's doing it.
Yeah. But yeah, networking is a lot of what she's talked about, right? Getting out there and
Yeah.
meeting people. Mm-hmm. All right, last question is, I don't know the person. It's a phone number, 453-9928. This will be our last question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I didn't get to check in on to list that I'm Carlos Hernandez, but I didn't get to check in on the chat because I only have a telephone.
Okay, who is
so
this?
Could you please write me down?
Say
That's
your name.
That's the only thing I have to say.
But say your name one more time.
What?
Oh, it's Kyle. Thank you, Derek. Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you for joining us.
We have to have everybody. That's why you're seeing all these names, is so that we can track our attendance. That's why. So if you put your name in, great. Thank
can we
you,
try
Becky.
to do a quick screen grab of
Oh
everyone
yeah,
on the
absolutely.
screen? I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get everyone because but I'll try to do two. All right.
All right. So everybody freeze.
All right. Smile in your cameras. All the chat. Hang on. Okay. The chat's going crazy. Okay. Smile.